Alright, so my daughter Madeline helped me get the ceiling of cedar put up in place. It's screwed in from the sides. Later on I'm going to block that up at the top and tie it into the plywood here at the top with blocking before I put the cedar on these two side walls. So the next step's going to be that blocking, just to really make that good and strong. Probably some 2x6 chunks. Got to keep in mind where my faucet and shower head are going to go. I think they'll be in this panel here. The plumbing will go sort of in the center of this. I'm not sure exactly how far in the rain head shower will be. I do want it to be in line with the faucet though. So anyhow, I'll take some measurements and we'll make that happen. I ended up not drilling holes ahead of time. I wanted to fit them in this place. There'll be a slanted piece with cedar on it where the wiring is to kind of cover things up there. And then I'm using cedar trim on everything with caulk in the corners. So eventually these corners here, this one and this one, I'm thinking I'll have steel posts that'll tie into the structure below here as well, and be maybe bridged into the ceiling or over into the wall. Well, that might not work because of the height, but anyhow, I'll have posts that kind of reinforce this so this doesn't bounce, and it gives us a place to grab as we're walking through the aisleway or getting out of the tub. I'll have to make sure it's fairly strong. Anyhow, that's what I wanted to get done. Well, I had a second person to help, and I did throw another coat of oil on, so this has 2 coats of oil on the cedar. It's the half citrus, half tung oil. So went in just like I expected it to, so all's well. I'm back at the bus after a few days away here, and I'm going to be using these pieces of 2x3 screwed into the wall, and they're going to help me frame in a little box around the wiring that we're going to cover in oiled cedar and then trim the edges. So anyhow, I'm going to get these screwed in place. So I've got those 2 pieces of 2x3 in place. Now I'm going to put a little bit of a 2x2 or something right up in here as a block for the piece of plywood I'm going to add before I put the cedar on that. So that's what I'm doing next. So I cut some plywood and got that boxed off there. I'll be able to slide the wires in and out through the back if I need to, but that'll serve to hold the cedar plank. I'm going to see if I have a little bit more red guard left over to paint it. We'll take a look. So I did have a little bit of red guard left, or the off-brand of red guard. This stuff it worked pretty well. It's called Aqua Defense. It's Lowe's, sells it. It's My Pay brand. So got that covered. The next step here will be to continue putting the cedar pieces up. I'm going to start at the bottom. I'll be running a bead of caulk in the bottom, clear caulk, and then we'll come up the corners with some caulk as we put pieces in. And the last row will have to be ripped to the right dimension before it touches there and at the ceiling. So anyhow, it should be pretty quick once I start tacking pieces up. I'll bring the chop saw in to cut them to length. This wall is only 30 some inches. I can't remember. I think it's 32 inches maybe. I'm not sure. But it's certainly not the full length of the cedar pieces, so we'll have to cut them. But that'll be the next step. I've been away from the bus for a bit working on a rehab of a rental property. So that's taken up time the last couple of weeks. But what I'm doing right now is actually building a storm door for that rental property. It's an odd size that you can't actually buy. It was originally home built. So I'm going to use this metal here, and I got this Evolution metal cutoff saw after Diesel Freak, DZLFREAK, after he featured this on his channel. This is a chop saw for steel, and I've got a number of steel projects coming up here So I figured this would be a lot better than a grinding wheel saw, which creates a lot of heat. This actually will create chips, keep it cooler, hopefully make cleaner cuts. But anyhow, I appreciate him featuring this and talking about it. This was about 230 something, I believe. I used his Amazon link for it. I'll have to put that in the description for his video. So anyhow, I will get started here chopping metal for that home project. I'm probably going to work a little bit on the bus today, but mostly it's focused on that rental property. Well, after using this for my first cut through this thick steel, it's almost 1/8 wall, I have to say, wow, is that good. That saw kicks butt. It's going to make short work of all the cuts I need to make to build the outdoor kitchen on the bus and the roof racks and the solar rack and the lounging area. It's going to be sweet. Finally back at the bus here, doing a little bit of work fairly late at night. Just putting some pieces of cedar up on this tub surround. Got some clear caulk in the gap. I'm going to tuck this cedar in place, tack it with the stainless nails, and then do the next board. So I've got a few boards up here on this side wall. Keep going all the way up, and after I've got this section in, we'll do the sides. Alright, so it's quite muggy tonight, sweating quite profusely, but except for the cuts I have to rip here on a table saw, I've got all these in place. Just been using a little miter box, just a cheap $15 miter set. So, it works pretty well on this thin stuff, it's easy to cut. Next, I'll be doing these sidewalls and cutting the smaller pieces. And I have some square trim, also cedar. That'll kind of finish this out when we get to that step. So for right now, I think I'm going to call it quits for the night. So I've started continuing with the cedar here on the sidewalls, right there and right there. Again, putting caulk underneath the first row, clear caulk to start with. Then we'll run a nice bead along the tub edge from the outside once we're done. And we'll put caulk up the corners with the molding. And all this gets oiled, of course, to help repel water. So, anyway, I'm keeping at it. It's going pretty quick. One thing to make note of is the way I'm cutting these. I'm actually cutting them in place. Over here, of course, I couldn't do that. I had to use the miter box. But this actually helps in another way. That is, this nail doesn't tend to split because it's far enough in. And then when I cut it, it still doesn't split. So, I've had a couple boards where it started splitting a bit. So, this is another reason to cut it like this. Alright, so I got a good bit of these sidewalls done. I'm at the point where I'm going to need to make the rip cuts and cut out for the sides, a little bit, a notch for the corner there. So anyhow, I'm going to quit for the day. So I've got the pieces put up. That top bit will be covered by trim. I've cut some thin strips to back it, but they're splitting. So they'll get glued in place up there before I put the trim on. But the next step here is going to be to get the rag with the oil and oil these pieces. I think I may want to run my bead of white caulk at the bottom before I oil so that the caulk will stick. So that might be the next thing, actually. Throw that bead of caulk on, maybe caulk the corners with some white caulk. And then rub the oil on. I think that's the plan. So anyway, I'm going to finish this up and get out of here. So I've ran the beads of caulk and wiped them with my finger to smooth them. The ones on the wood here will be covered with trim. The ones on the tub will not, but they're pretty clean looking. White on white's hard to see any irregularities. So next step, I'm going to get the cloth and oil these planks. So there it is with a coat of oil freshly applied. I can tell I'm going to need to put another coat on, especially on this wall. It's a little chalky. But anyhow, I think it's looking beautiful, and I guess when it dries it'll look more like that, but I'm pleased. There again, we'll be trimming the corners, except for down below at the edge of the tub here. I don't believe I'm putting trim there. I guess I could, but I'm not planning to. It might get kind of funky. Alright, so there it is, all finished, except for cleaning up sawdust. Got it all oiled another time. Got a storm going on, so the light's just kind of browned out there. But I got another coat of oil on it, got the trim up and oiled. I'm very pleased. I think it'll dry more of a honey color like this did. Once these sides all kind of dry out, they'll get lighter. But love this cedar. I've always liked cedar. It's a beautiful wood. So very pleased. Next steps for the shower, we've got to pick out some fixtures. We're going to put a rain head up here, and then on this wall we're going to have the spigot coming out low, and then we'll have a separate shower for when we're hooked up to a shore water line, and then we're going to have a economy water saving shower off to the side for when we're boondocking. It'll have a push button on it. So anyhow, I'm also going to, on this wall here, I'm going to be building some probably stainless steel shelves to hold toiletries, shampoo, and things like that. Or maybe I'll mount a dispenser for those soaps and just put one shelf in for other things, some hooks for hanging washcloths and scrubbies, etc. But anyhow, very pleased. This is just what I was envisioning when I planned to do cedar here, so very happy.